I'll never forget the day I went to the bank and saw something that completely changed the way I look at people. I was just there to deposit a check. Nothing special, just one of those boring weekday errands. I had no idea I was about to witness something that would leave the entire room in stunned silence. I was standing in line, scrolling through my phone when the door opened and this man walked in. At first, I didn't really pay attention, but then I looked up. He didn't look like the kind of person you usually see in that fancy downtown branch. He had on this long, faded coat, old worn-out boots that had definitely seen better days, and his hair was wild and messy, peeking out from under a beanie. He had dark sunglasses on, even though we were indoors. People turned to stare, and not in a friendly way. A couple of people behind me whispered something under their breath and giggled. The security guard shifted in his seat, and right behind the counter one of the younger clerks, a woman named Tiffany, I think, gave this little scoff, loud enough for others to hear. "Oh great," she muttered, not even trying to hide her smirk. "Another one of those." I watched her roll her eyes and elbow her coworker, who tried not to laugh. I felt a little uncomfortable, but I didn't say anything. Nobody did. We just watched as the man slowly made his way to the counter, holding what looked like a slip of paper in his gloved hand. He looked so calm, completely unbothered. But something told me this wasn't going to be an ordinary visit, and I was absolutely right. As the man reached the counter, Tiffany whispered loudly enough for her coworker to hear, "Looks like another homeless guy trying to cash in on something." Her voice had that sharp edge, like she was annoyed to even have to deal with him. A few other customers nearby snickered quietly, clearly amused by her comment. It felt like they were all in on some private joke at the expense of this man. I noticed how Tiffany's eyes scanned him from head to toe, like she was trying to find a reason to refuse him right then and there. She straightened her posture, put on this fake polite smile, and said, "Sir, how can I help you today?" The man didn't react to the jab or the laughter around him. Instead, he spoke softly, his voice calm and clear but not loud enough to draw attention. "I'd like to discuss something with you about my account, but if possible, I'd prefer to do it privately." He held out a small slip of paper, folded neatly. I caught a glimpse of it, looked official, like a form or a note from somewhere. Tiffany glanced at it, then sighed. Her eyes rolled so hard it was almost funny. "Fine," she said, waving him over to a side desk away from the other customers. "But this better not take long." As he followed her, he didn't complain or argue. He just nodded politely, his hands steady, his steps measured. I watched him closely. There was something about the way he carried himself that didn't fit with the assumptions Tiffany and the others were making. He wasn't nervous or angry. He didn't seem like someone desperate for money or looking for trouble. It was almost like he was used to being judged but had learned to stay calm through it all. The whole bank seemed to settle back into its usual hum after they moved out of sight. But inside I felt a growing tension. I couldn't shake the feeling that what would happen next wasn't going to be what anyone expected. And I was right, because appearances, as I was about to learn, can be terribly deceiving. They moved to the small side desk, away from the main counter, but even there Tiffany didn't drop her attitude. As she sat down and started typing on her computer, I could hear her muttering under her breath, loud enough for me to catch. "I don't even know why he thinks he belongs here. Looks like he just crawled out of a gutter." I glanced around to see if anyone else heard it, but everyone was pretending not to notice. I wanted to say something, anything, but I just stayed frozen. It was like watching a slow-motion disaster. Tiffany finally looked up at the man, raising one eyebrow and smirking. "So, do you even have an account with us? Because I don't see anything in your name here." The man's calm voice came again, quiet but steady. "Yes, I do. It's under my full legal name." He handed her the slip of paper again, the one she'd glanced at earlier. She typed again, slower this time, and then pretended to check something on another screen. Not sure how someone who looks like you ends up with an account here," she whispered, barely covering a sarcastic smile. "We don't usually get people like you." The man didn't say a word. He just waited patiently as Tiffany kept scrolling through his account details. I could see the frustration building in her face, but also a strange hesitation, like she was surprised by what she was finding. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, then she leaned back, crossing her arms. "You don't really fit the usual clientele here," she said aloud this time, loud enough for a nearby customer to hear. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" The man just nodded politely, never losing his calm. His eyes stayed on Tiffany, but there was no anger, no bitterness, just quiet dignity. The discomfort was growing, not just mine, but maybe the whole room's, even if no one wanted to admit it. Part of me wanted to say something to Tiffany, to ask her to stop judging him, but I stayed silent. Maybe I was afraid of making things worse, or maybe I didn't want to embarrass him by drawing more attention. All I knew was this moment felt heavy, like something important was about to happen. And then, Tiffany finally hit enter and leaned forward to look at the screen. What she saw next would change everything for all of us. Tiffany's fingers hovered over the keyboard one last time, before she entered the account number into the system. Her face was still twisted in that smug expression, like she was about to prove some point. But then, almost immediately, something changed. Her fingers stopped moving. The confident smirk disappeared, replaced by a slow, creeping confusion. I saw her blink, once, twice, then again, like she was trying to clear her eyes, maybe hoping the screen was wrong. But it wasn't. Her face drained of color, the pale, unhealthy shade of someone who has just seen something they never expected. It was like the entire room had gone still, even though we were all sitting or standing in the middle of the busy bank. I held my breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Everyone around us seemed to freeze too, as if they could sense the sudden shift in energy. "Is this real?" Tiffany whispered, barely loud enough for the man to hear. The man smiled gently, the kindness in his eyes never fading. He leaned forward just slightly and said, "Would you like to double-check it?" She didn't need to be asked twice. Her fingers shakily moved back to the keyboard, retyping the number and pressing enter again. The same numbers blinked back at her. Millions. Not just one account, but several, all with incredibly large sums, enough to make anyone's jaw drop. For a moment, no one said anything. Tiffany's eyes darted between the screen and the man's face, searching for some kind of explanation, some trick, some reason why this couldn't be real. But there was only calm, steady confidence in his gaze. She looked at him, then back at the screen, her voice barely audible. You have all this in your accounts?" He nodded quietly. "Yes." It was hard to imagine. This man who looked so rough, so unpolished, was a millionaire, maybe even more than that. And yet here he was, treated like he was nothing. I felt a mix of shock and shame rising inside me. How many times had I, or anyone else in that bank, judged him just by how he looked? How many times had we made assumptions without knowing a single thing about who he really was? Tiffany swallowed hard, her eyes still fixed on the numbers. The confidence had completely drained from her posture. She looked like she wanted to disappear. The man simply smiled, quietly. "I don't mind how I look," he said softly, "because I know who I am." The silence in the room grew heavier. The other customers began to glance over, their expressions changing from curiosity to disbelief. I looked around and saw the manager hurry toward the desk, his steps quick and urgent. Everything was about to change in that small corner of the bank, and no one there would ever forget what happened next. As the numbers on the screen sunk in, the entire bank seemed to fall silent. The usual noise of people chatting and typing stopped. Even the distant hum of the air conditioning faded into the background. It was like everyone suddenly realized something important was happening. Whispers began to spread from one corner of the bank to another. "Did you see that balance?" someone murmured. "Who is that man?" another asked quietly. The curiosity grew fast, and before long, the whole room was buzzing with surprised energy. From the back of the bank, a manager appeared. He was usually busy in his office, hidden away from customers, but now he walked quickly toward Tiffany's desk with a look of genuine interest. His steps were purposeful, his eyes fixed on the man. Tiffany's earlier confidence had vanished completely. Her cheeks flushed bright red, and she began stammering, trying to explain herself. "I didn't mean to be rude. I didn't recognize you. I'm sorry if I offended you." The man simply smiled, a small, kind smile. He didn't get defensive or angry. Instead, he looked at Tiffany with a calmness that seemed to fill the room with a strange kind of peace. Around us, the other bank employees started to notice the shift. Some straightened their backs, their eyes widening as they whispered to each other. The energy in the room changed from casual to serious, as if they suddenly realized who might be standing right in front of them. But the man didn't say a word about his identity. He didn't need to. His quiet presence said enough. The manager greeted him respectfully now, asking if he needed any assistance. The man politely declined, nodding but remaining calm and composed. Watching all of this unfold, I felt a mixture of surprise and respect. It was clear this was no ordinary customer, but instead someone who had earned his place quietly, without fanfare. Yet despite everything, he didn't let the attention change who he was. He just stood there with that gentle smile, showing all of us a lesson we wouldn't forget anytime soon. Just as the tension in the bank began to ease, a sudden voice cut through the quiet. It was a child, sitting with their parent in the waiting area. With wide eyes and excitement, the little kid shouted, "Mom, that's Jack Sparrow." The entire room froze. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the humming of the computers seemed to hush. I looked over to see the man at the desk slowly lift his hand to remove his sunglasses. The movement was calm and smooth, almost like he was revealing a secret. When his eyes met the room, there was a soft smile playing on his lips. The man wasn't just anyone. It was Johnny Depp, the legendary actor known around the world, famous for playing the iconic character Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. A few people gasped quietly, unable to believe what they were seeing. Some whispered his name, barely daring to speak too loudly. Then, almost on cue, a handful of customers began clapping softly, as if honoring his unexpected presence. The bank manager immediately stepped forward, bowing his head slightly in respect. "Mr. Depp, "Please allow me to escort you to our private room for any assistance you may need," he said politely. Johnny smiled warmly, but shook his head. "Thank you, but I'm fine," he replied calmly. "I've already seen what I needed to see today." His words carried a quiet strength that seemed to fill the room. He didn't need to make a scene or demand special treatment. Instead, he showed grace and humility, even after all the attention and respect he suddenly received. Watching him stand there, I felt a deep respect growing inside me. Here was someone who could have easily used his fame to demand anything, but chose not to. He came to the bank as just a man, not a celebrity, and faced the judgment like any ordinary person. But when the truth came out, he handled it with kindness and calm. Johnny Depp turned toward the exit, nodding slightly to the bank staff and even to me, the quiet witness of the day's events. I returned the nod, feeling like I had just seen something truly special. The moment stayed with me long after he left the building, a reminder that sometimes, the most important things aren't about what you look like, or how people judge you. It's about who you are inside, and how you carry yourself no matter what. After the moment settled, Tiffany suddenly seemed overcome with guilt. She took a small step forward, her eyes fixed on the floor at first, then slowly lifting to meet Johnny's gaze. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Mr. Depp, I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you at first. I didn't mean any harm. I was wrong to judge you based on how you looked." Johnny looked at her calmly, his eyes gentle but serious. He didn't raise his voice or show anger, but every word he spoke carried weight. "It's never about who someone is," he said softly. "It's about how you treat people." The simplicity of his message hit the whole room like a quiet thunder. No shouting, no drama, just truth. Tiffany nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I could see the relief mixed with shame on her face. She took a deep breath, then added quietly, "Thank you for reminding me of that. I won't forget it." Johnny gave a small, understanding smile. He didn't say more. Instead, he turned gently toward the exit. As he walked past, our eyes met for a brief moment. I felt a nod from him, almost like a silent thank you for witnessing everything. I nodded back, feeling something shift inside me too. He left the bank quietly, without any fanfare or special treatment, just like any other person might do after a difficult but important moment. The room remained still for a moment longer. Tiffany looked down again, now humbled, and the other bank employees exchanged glances that seemed to say, "We've all learned something today." For me, that moment was powerful. It showed me how easy it is to judge someone by how they look, and how important it is to remember that real value isn't visible on the surface. Johnny Depp's calm kindness and quiet strength reminded us all that respect and empathy matter far more than appearances. And sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected encounter to change how you see the world. After Johnny Depp left, I found a quiet corner in the bank and sat down, still feeling the weight of what I had just witnessed. The room slowly returned to its normal sounds, the soft tapping of keyboards, quiet conversations, but inside me, everything felt different. I thought about how quickly people had judged him, just because of his messy hair, worn boots, and old coat. So many had made assumptions. Some even laughed or whispered behind his back. It was a sharp reminder of how easy it is to judge someone by what we see on the surface. But who he really was, that was hidden beneath all those things, and that was what mattered. I realized how often this happens, not just in banks but everywhere. We see someone and immediately decide who they are. We make stories in our minds, sometimes cruel ones, without knowing the full truth. It's a natural reaction, but it's also a dangerous one. Johnny Depp showed me that kindness and humility are stronger than judgment. He didn't get angry or demand respect. Instead, he stayed calm, gentle, and true to himself. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. His actions spoke louder than words. That moment stayed with me long after I left the bank. I couldn't stop thinking about how a simple act of judging someone's appearance had turned into a powerful lesson about respect. It made me question my own thoughts and how often I might have done the same. It made me want to be kinder, more understanding, and less quick to assume. We all carry stories beneath the surface, stories that only become clear if we look beyond first impressions. That day I learned that real strength isn't about money, fame, or looks. It's about how we treat each other when no one is watching. And that's a lesson I hope everyone can carry with them. If this story touched your heart or made you think twice about judging someone by their appearance, please give this video a like. Share it with someone who needs this reminder. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. And we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone being unfairly judged? Share your experience in the comments below. Together we can learn to be kinder and more understanding every day.